Have you ever told a lie that followed you for years? In high school, I created a twin with a backstory and a whole life separate to mine. My imaginary twin, James, got me out of trouble and saved my ass more times than I can count. It was sophomore year, last period on a Friday. I was ready for the weekend. I was packing my backpack, which was open at my feet, when my math teacher stopped in front of my desk. "Jaydan," he said. "Do you care to explain why you felt the need to vandalize a school wall with the words, 'O'Connor sucks'?" A small ripple of suppressed laughter went through the classroom. O'Connor was the vice principal and he was universally hated, but I didn't let that show on my face. I kept my face blank and just blinked a couple of times. "What?" McManus held up a pink slip. "Vandalism, spray paint, west stairwell." I had been caught, and I needed a way out of it. I started. It must have been James." "Who is James?" Mr. McManus asked, tired and cynical. "My twin," I shrugged. "You expect me to believe you have a twin that I don't know about." Megan, a popular girl, suddenly entered the conversation, loud and confident. "He does have a twin." The room shifted, heads turned. I felt heat rush up my neck. "A twin that doesn't go to this school?" he asked. "Well, yeah," I replied quickly. "James goes to the alternative school, for, the kids who get in trouble." There was a pause. I could see McManus searching my face to find the crack in my lie, but I stood firm. He sighed the way adults do when paperwork gets complicated. "Well," he said slowly, "if that's the case, we'll need to hear that from your parents, and the principal will need to be notified." The bell rang, chairs scraped back, and someone slapped my shoulder and said, "Dude, your brother's wild." By the time I opened my mouth to explain, the moment had passed. On Monday afternoon, following an email from my mom that I sent and then deleted from her sent mail folder, detention was quietly revoked. The vandal became James. And that's how I became a twin. At first it was funny. It felt like an inside joke that some kids were in on. Most kids were not. And as the word spread I had a badass brother, people started asking about him. I started to add to the lie. I gave James hobbies and bad things he'd done in the past, favorite foods. Even teachers started asking about James. The lies were small at first, just improvised white lies. When I forgot science homework, I tried to look upset and said, "James tore up the house last night. My room was destroyed and I just couldn't concentrate." When my English essay was only half finished, it was because James had hid my textbook as a prank. When I showed up to school exhausted, it was because James had been going through something the night before and had been pacing up and down the hallway, muttering to himself until 2 a.m. Teachers nodded with sympathy, and the kids seemed to all go along with it. For some of us, it was an inside joke that we pulled over the teachers and most of the kids. James was useful. He absorbed consequences. He made my bad days forgivable. And over time, James developed a personality, without me ever really meaning to. He was reckless, impulsive, funny in a way I wasn't allowed to be. If something went wrong, it was because James pushed too far, but if something went right, it was because I was the good twin. People liked the good twin, bad twin trope, and I leaned into it without realizing I was leaning. By senior year, James was lore. Freshmen knew about his antics. Teachers referenced him like he was a cautionary tale. "You don't want to end up like your brother," the guidance counselor once told me, as if James were out there making bad choices in the real world. I told myself it would end at graduation. College would be my clean slate where I could go back to being an only child. I actually started to look forward to leaving James at high school, but that turned out to be just a dream. The first week of college orientation, I was sitting on the dorm steps when a guy from my high school stopped short in front of me. "Holy shit," he said. "Hey, Jaydan, where's James?" I laughed. Too fast. Well, not at college." He nodded. "Figures." And that was it. That was all it took. Soon my roommate knew, and then his friends, and then people I didn't know at all. They heard the stories secondhand, warped and exaggerated. Apparently James had gotten expelled twice. He had burned down a building, stolen a golf cart and crashed it, and he had disappeared for most of a summer, terrorizing our parents and scaring the whole town. This had started as a small lie to get out of trouble for something I had absolutely done, but I had thought I could get free of it, and I was wrong. In college, James became an explanation again, but a different kind. When I dropped a class, people said, "Don't worry, at least you're not like your brother." When I didn't want to go out, they joked that James must be the party animal and not me. Once or twice I tried to correct people, but I quickly stopped trying to do that because correcting them required explaining everything. It just was easier to let the lie keep going rather than explain why I had lied for years. After college, we graduated and scattered. A few years went by, but even then, people still asked about James. People whose names I couldn't even remember from high school still remembered him. The crazy twin with a rap sheet. They all remembered someone who didn't exist, with the clarity of someone as real as me. Sometimes I answered out of reflex, but I tried to play it down. I wanted the lie to end because I'm now in my late 20s and it's hard to remember all those details about someone who doesn't actually exist. I met my fiancée when I was 26. I did not tell her about James, the lie that followed me for years. I didn't want to admit to it, and I didn't want to lie in our relationship. It was all good until one night we were at a bar and a couple of my old college friends were there. We chatted for a while and eventually they asked about James, and I tried to reply with as little information as possible, saying, same old, same old. Angela asked who James was in front of the guys, and they said, his twin brother. Like, wait till you meet him. As if they had met him before, which obviously they had not. After they left, Angela looked confused and concerned, saying, You've never mentioned having a twin. Do you not get along? Is there some bad history there? Why have you not told me about him? And I told her the whole truth. I told her about the spray paint and the detention that I avoided, the forged email, about how other kids, sometimes really unexpectedly, had backed up the lie. I told Angela how quickly it spiraled, how it followed me, and how James had saved my ass more times than I could count. She stared at me for a moment, and then she laughed a big belly laugh. She laughed until she had tears at the corner of her eyes. So, she summed up, you've been haunted by an imaginary delinquent brother for 15 years whose imaginary escapades everyone in your hometown knows. Pretty much. And everyone still believes this? I mean, my close friends knew it was a lie, but they never ratted me out. And everyone else? Yeah, pretty much. She shook her head. You know what? I kind of love it. He's not badass, you're badass. The truth had finally been spoken, and the lie could rest now. And for a while it did. But at our wedding, Angela suggested we save a seat for James as a joke. I should have said no, but I laughed and said, well, he'd be late. So there it was, a chair in the second row, a small white card with James written on it in careful script. My parents noticed. Just before the service began, I overheard my mom whisper, Who is that for? To my dad. He turned and squinted. Must be a close work buddy. At the reception, after a few beers, and after my best man speech, I got up to give a toast. I cleared my throat and smiled. Today is about two families coming together as one, and it's with family in mind that I think it's time to finally address my twin brother James. My parents looked confused, and I could see it written across their faces. Most of you here know about my twin brother James. He's pretty badass and a hometown legend. You'll have seen his empty chair today, and I think it's time to explain why, I grinned. Now, I know this might come as a shock to some, but I don't actually have a twin. I'm an only child with a wild imagination who needed to get out of a detention for something I did do my sophomore year in high school, but didn't want to face the consequences for. And the tale of James just grew out of my control. As Mark Twain said, a lie can travel around the globe before the truth can get its pants on. And that's what happened here. So, with my apologies, I am asking you all to retire the lie of the imaginary James. There was silence for quite a few seconds, and then someone laughed. A few more people started to laugh, and eventually there was a general wave of humor in the crowd, which was a relief. I held up my glass and toasted to James, who has been saving my ass since high school. The room exploded. People laughed and clapped and raised their glasses to the fall guy who never existed. And 100 voices said, To James! Word of the truth spread fast, but no one seemed to care too much. I'd been worried people would be angry, would think badly of me, but mostly they didn't. If anything, it elevated my own legendary status around town, the guy who invented a whole person just to be a scapegoat to avoid detention. I'm relieved the lie is over and find it hilarious that our town's biggest badass is an imaginary person who inspired countless people to do stupid things just for the fun of it. Oh, and the last little cherry on top, at Thanksgiving and Christmas, my parents set a place for James and post a family photo with him missing They post it every year to Facebook as a tribute to the legendary guy who never existed. If you enjoyed this reading, please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss future stories. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. This has been Tales by Rachel, where we breathe life into every story.